This week on Monday Mindshare, we are going to talk to recent Ironman Eagleman 70.3 champion. We will be able to get to know her a little bit better and also discuss some of the race tactics that she used to make that day a winner. Hey there, Coach Aaron here, host of SFuels Monday Mindshare, where we bring endurance and nutrition together to help you go longer. So today's guest, I have one of my actual personal athletes who just came off of a recent win at Ironman Eagleman 70.3. I am happy and excited to introduce Elizabeth Heinback. Elizabeth, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, and I thank you for coming on the program today. It's always good to get a new face on Monday Mindshare.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive on into some questions if you're ready for it.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right. Well, the first question that I got is a very simple one for you. It's, Elizabeth, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm 28. I live in the U.S. in Cincinnati, Ohio. My day job is as a mechanical engineer doing HVAC design, and I guess an avid triathlete and also a dog and cat mom.
All right. I like that. Anytime that we can bring animals into the showcase, it's always a good day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and especially as an engineer, I know that your analytical mind kind of really probably connects with triathlon, but we'll get into that question here in a minute. But as far as with your work-life balance and your triathlon training, how do you create a work-life balance? And really, how do you kind of build that into the training that you do for triathlon and around triathlon, as well as recovery?
I think it's just a lot of time management, and you have to prioritize what's important to you. So both, my career as an engineer and as a triathlete are both very important. So you make time for that, and yeah, it all kind of works together.
And with that, with the training aspect of things, how many hours a week would you say that you're probably putting into training and recovery as far as triathlon?
It's a good question. I know training is probably averaging somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week. Recovery, I think, would be a little harder to quantify, but I mean, doing things every day to try to recover and bounce back for workouts.
And I can say, knowing your training calendar, yes, you are right with that time invested into your training. So it definitely takes a lot of time management, like you talked about, and really it also just kind of shows that you place your priorities and importance at the top of the list to make sure that all those things get done.
Yep. I think when you're passionate about it, that makes it a lot easier.
Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. And let's kind of dive into the race there at Eagleman. And for those that aren't aware, Eagleman is a US-based Ironman half distance up in really Cambridge, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And so what, Elizabeth, were your emotions around winning that Ironman Eagleman 70.3?
I think it was a whole mixture of emotions. I mean, relieved because I think going into the race had the goal of getting a pro card. And so knowing that I had done that was just a big relief. And then I think having the win was just icing on the cake, like that, top three got their pro card. So that was the goal. And that was what I, wanted the entire day. And then winning was just a very pleasant surprise.
Were there any additional thoughts when you found out that you finished 12th in the pro side of things as well?
Yeah, I think a little shock and just, excitement. I think one of the things a lot of people talk about when they make the transition to pro is just that I think you have to feel like you belong there and the work that goes into that. And so I think I got a little confirmation that at least, on a good day, on a course that suits me well, I can be competitive in that field. So, I think that was nice.
So it was not just your coach continuing to tell you that you belonged at that level. You had that confirmation from the actual race performance?
Yeah, it's nice to actually see it for yourself.
That's understandable. And I felt like that was a important piece of the puzzle to kind of bring together and really have you kind of see where you could belong and where you're heading really as far as the nutrition, because we do have you utilizing the SFuels line of products.
Mhm.
What were your nutrition planning on the day for this particular race?
Well, I started the day with an SFuels Life Bar, which is pretty much how I start every day,
Mhm.
and then a couple hard-boiled eggs. And then for the race itself, on the bike, I used the Race Plus drink and gel. And I think it was the first time I'd used the gel on the bike, which I think I really liked, and helped with the run. And then on the run, I was just taking the Race Plus gel.
And we 100% saw you cross the finish line with the bullet in your hand. So for confirmation, we can show that that was the case.
Yep, it's in all the run pictures.
Exactly how we planned it, right?
Hmm.
So really, I know how we incorporated the Race Plus gel into the bike, but let's kind of go into a little bit of detail of how we utilize the Race Plus gel to kind of fulfill the grams of carbohydrates we were shooting for on the bike. So my question to that is, how, what was the process that we used to kind of bring in the gel along with the Race Plus drink formula?
Well, I guess it went back to our conversation about I raced Eagleman last year and was the second amateur, and I think was happy with my run split there, but I knew that the last couple miles, especially, I could tell that I had faded, and I think was probably bonking a little bit. And last year on the bike, I had only had the Race Plus drink, so we decided that it was probably best to add some extra carbs on the bike to make sure that I went into the run feeling good and could finish it feeling good. And so, yeah, that was what we decided.
And you pulled it off to a T. So especially in our post race conversation, which was about 10 minutes after you crossed the finish line, you might have given it everything you had, but our conversation, you still had enough energy, and you looked in those pictures crossing the finish line like you had still a little bit left in the tank. So that's exactly what we were shooting for.
I don't know that I felt that way, but I will say that bonking was not the limiting factor. It was not my nutrition. It was that was all I had fitness wise, which I think is exactly what you want.
Exactly. We're only shooting for that tape, right?
Yep.
Well, you pulled it to a T. So that's fantastic. And I think that kind of, as we move further with the Race Plus gel, I think we initially just thought, hey, let's use it on the run, but to kind of bring it into and incorporate on the bike, I find that is really where the product provides some additional benefit. And I think that sharing your story of how you utilized it in this race, how that kind of brings and connects some of the dots. So I appreciate that. To get to know you a little bit better, Elizabeth, why don't you give us a little bit of detail on your athletic background?
Sure. So I ran cross country and track in high school, and also swam, and then went on to swim in college, Division three, and then I think took a little bit of a break from athletics before getting into triathlon, and did my first half Ironman at Ohio 70.3 in 2019.
And do you feel like the swim background, and especially the running background, did it make for a smooth transition into the sport of triathlon?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think a lot of people have to learn to swim, and so I think coming in with that background helps a lot. And just I've done some open water swimming, and so just coming in without any fear with that, I think has helped a lot.
Well, and as you talked about, I mean, you raced Eagleman last year. You were the first female out of the water. You've been really top 5 or 6, even in the pro, like when you've raced against a pro field, you've been kind of in the top 5 or 6 coming out of the water. So your skills from your swim background obviously show. And that's probably, most people would say that that's, in most eyes, you would say, oh, that's her strength. But Where do you feel out of the three sports your true strength comes?
Um, so far, I think when I race, it's kind of dependent on the day, and I think what, the course is. And yeah, I think on any given day, it usually just, it depends. I think I've had races where my swim's the best. I've had them where my bike's the best and where my run's the best.
Oh, and that's kind of what we're looking for in this sport. To be good at it, you have to be strong in all three disciplines. And I think that
Yep.
that comment right there shows that on each one of the disciplines that you have a certain level of skill and talent that is allowing you to perform at high levels on each and any given day.
Yep.
So if you would say that you had areas that you feel like you could improve on, what would you say out of the three disciplines, what areas would you feel like you have the biggest areas to improve?
I'd say primarily the bike. I think just that being the newest sport for me, having only done it really the last couple years. Yeah, still getting a feel, especially for riding outside and putting down power and understanding race dynamics and those things. It's just, yeah, I think I need a little more experience.
And we are 100% on the same page with that, but it's more of just getting you comfortable in a scenario that you haven't had a whole lot of exposure to. It's not, I mean, I would put your FTP up against a lot of individuals, male or female in that case. So it's just a matter of getting that kind of technical and comfort on the bike is really that area that it sounds like and seems it's the area that we can pick and pick and prod a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could get that wording out. So another thing to help us kind of get to know who you are and what's important to you within this sport, who and how do you feel you can positively impact the triathlon community?
I think for me, empowering women is super important, especially in the sport. And I guess really in, both things that I do in my career as an engineer, and then also in triathlon, I think it's just really important to have a presence. And I think, sharing your experience in the sport and just, I think, encouraging other women to do the sport. And
Well, and also showing them that you can be I mean, a contributor to a very, very demanding job,
mhm.
along with being a dog and cat mom and an athlete. So I mean, you're really working it from a lot of different perspectives there, and I feel like that's a great platform for you to kind of help and share with others how they might be able to take advantage of a situation or opportunity that they might have out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my hope.
Beautiful. Well, I feel like with your personality, with the way that you connect with people, you definitely to this point have taken that opportunity, and hopefully we can continue to expand upon your reach, so therefore more people can get familiar with you and you can continue to help and drive others to put themselves in a different place.
Yeah,
Let's lead
absolutely.
into the next question, which would be more of the short-term and long-term goals that you have coming with the sport of triathlon. What would you say some of the short-term goals you are working on, and then what are some of the long-term goals that you have in your vision?
I'd say short term, especially I'm not doing a lot of racing this summer. So really working on trying to improve those weaknesses that we talked about earlier. Yeah, and spending more time outside on the bike and getting more comfortable with that, I think is the biggest thing short term. And then long term, I think would just be trying to grow a career in the sport and, seeing what can happen.
And to add on to that a little bit, I know you're projecting a little bit, and we don't want to necessarily make the goals too big, but I mean, how do you feel like you can be a part of that top level? Are you looking to be kind of in the middle? What kind of level, when you say long-term goal that you want to compete with the pros, what does that mean?
I think it's hard to say. Every year the sport's getting more and more competitive. And so, I mean, getting to that top level is really difficult. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Well, and especially to add on to that, I mean, you've really been only racing triathlon for really since 2019. And part of that, we went through something called a pandemic, and
Yep.
you haven't had a ton of races under your belt, but just to see where you've gone from your first half Ironman distance to where you've gone now, I want to say 5 or 6 total, is a pretty impressive increase. So I agree that it's probably hard to kind of define and restrict yourself from where you might be able to go. So I find that that's a pretty good answer in that case.
Well, and, you know, looking at the women that are up at the top, it's so hard to so much respect for them that it's hard to envision, you know.
And especially when you just had that first race that just kind of opened your eyes that you do kind of belong, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, you hopefully made some friends on that answer as well.
I hope so.
Leading from there, what are some of the upcoming races that you have coming up, and how can people connect with you?
So upcoming races, I'll probably do a few local Olympic distance races this summer before the 70.3 World Championships in St. George in October. And then ideally, I guess that will be my last race as an amateur before making the jump to pro. And then as far as connecting with me, the best place is probably Instagram. That's where I share most of my triathlon content, at least. So Elizabeth Heinback. And then I am on Facebook as well.
All right. Well, we will definitely put that in the chat so people can find you and follow you, because I feel like you are just getting started. So therefore, we have a lot of people that need to hop on the train and really start to follow where you're going, and that positive, really driving kind of the women, and being just a advocate for triathlon and female triathlon at that. Well, Elizabeth, I want to thank you for coming on to Monday Mindshare today. I think it was a great opportunity to have our Monday Mindshare viewers get to know you a little bit better. I look forward to future visits here on Monday Mindshare, and I'm excited to see where the career continues to move.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you again. And everybody out there, we appreciate you tuning in today. I am Coach Aaron. Let's go longer.
Easy.